David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another Q&A. I realized that I neglected to include a field for your name in the giveaway where I asked for Q&A questions, so I don't have the names of the folks who asked these questions. You know who you are, and thank you very much for submitting your questions, as well as everyone else who submitted them as well. Okay, first question is, would you rather have a collection of similar pens or an accumulation of as many different styles as possible? There are two general mindsets when it comes to collecting, all of one or one of all. Some folks love safaris and want to collect as many varieties as possible. I tend to lean towards the one of all approach. I don't have too many duplicates in my collections. There's nothing wrong with either approach to collecting. It's all about what you love. You might love Pilot Vanishing Points and want to collect them all, and that would be a challenge. There are a large number of Japanese exclusives. I know folks who have mules over in Japan that will go to these department stores to purchase these limited edition models that aren't available anywhere online, and then ship them over to the US. I can understand the thrill of the chase in trying to complete and expand a collection like that. And, I'm a big fan of variety though. So yeah, I tend to lead toward the one of all approach. Do you feel like you have too many pens? Do you feel like you should downsize to only your favorites? Absolutely. I have way too many pens. If I didn't have this channel, then I would definitely downsize considerably. But I consider a lot of my collection to be reference material, if that makes sense. If I review a pen, I have a large number of pens I can then choose from for size comparisons and the like. It's like having a big library. A couple of years ago, I sold off 50 pens, and one of these days I should have another sale where I cull the herd a little bit. The next question is, does anyone in your family or at work have an interest in fountain pens? No. No one in my home cares or is interested in my hobby at all. And that's okay. We all have our mutual interests, and then there we have our interests that are more personal. I used to share it more at work and at home, and over time I realized that if folks aren't genuinely interested, then it just becomes a bit of an annoyance. Oh, here comes David again. I bet he's going to show me another pen. The next question here is, how do you feel about stamped nibs versus laser engraved? Now, typically stamping, in my opinion, looks best. In the past, I've seen a lot of laser engraved nibs that really cheapen the look of the pen and the nib. I understand why folks laser engrave though. Buying the stamping dies is expensive. I was told by a small pen company that the cost was around $15,000 just for the stamping die. For a small company, that is a major investment and something that really doesn't add that much to the pen, especially if you're using a standard Bach or Jowo nib. The quality of the laser engraving can differ greatly, though. Leonardo's used laser engraving on some of their steel nibs, and I think it looks good. I don't know what laser engraver Jonathan Brooks has, but he can even do pictures. It looks really nice. I mean, if you wanted your face on a nib, he could do that, and the quality is good. So it really depends on the quality of the engraver you use. I think laser engraving has really gotten better over the last few years. The next question is, how many pens do you keep inked up at one time? You know what? Not as many as I used to. I used to be really bad at cleaning my pens. I would ink a pen and then just put it back and not clean it until I went to go use that pen again. And the ink would be all dried up and it would take 10 times longer to clean than if I would have done it right away. So now I'm a little bit better. I've kept disciplined about that. So I keep about 10 pens or so inked at a time. I'm much better about having a cleaning schedule. Typically, I'm cleaning pens every other week or so, so I only have about a dozen or so to clean. But I've found that it's much more satisfying to know that when you pick up a pen from your collection that it's clean, and all I need to do is decide on what ink I'll use. Plus, regular cleaning is better for the overall health and maintenance of your pens. One of these days I will do a video on pen cleaning. A while back I actually shot a bunch of video of me cleaning pens, and I haven't gotten around to formulating a video around that footage yet. One of these days. Okay, this is an important question. What is the best burrito in San Diego? You know what? There are tons of places to get a good burrito in San Diego. I miss going out and getting some really good, authentic Mexican food. The Mexican food here in North Carolina isn't quite the same. While burritos are great, I am a big fan of rolled tacos. So there are lots of small taco shops around San Diego. I call them Bertos. There's Albertos, Roy Bertos, Humbertos, Abiertos, Robertos, Rigobertos, and a few more. For the most part, these little places will have some great rolled tacos. And they're usually in some kind of building that was previously something else, like a really old Taco Bell, like the ones you only had to like walk up to, or like a Wiener Schnitzel with the slanted roof. It's an inverse proportion. In most cases, the jankier the outside of the taco shop looks, the better the food inside is. There were a couple of people who asked about the average airspeed of an unladen swallow. The answer to that is that it varies depending on whether it's African or European, of course. The next question is, I enjoyed when you shared your trip to China. Do you have plans for another trip somewhere in the world? I do have a couple of trips planned for the upcoming year. In January, I'm heading out to Hawaii to visit some family. I'm looking forward to seeing my family out there and then playing a little bit of golf. I've spent some time previously on Kauai and then the big island of Hawaii, but other than the airport, I really haven't seen any of Oahu, so I'm looking forward to checking out a new island. And then later in the year, we're having a bit of a family reunion on a cruise to Alaska. I'm looking forward to that because Alaska is the only U.S. state I have yet to visit. So I'm looking forward to being able to cross that off the list and being able to say that I've visited all 50 states. I have only been to 3 continents. I think that would be cool to say that you've been to all 7. My parents travel a lot and have been to all 7. They've also made it to every national park in the U.S. I'm not sure if I need to do that one, but I would like to get to all of the continents. The next question is, when you were a stockbroker, what made you successful? You know what? I wasn't successful. That's why I used to be a stockbroker. It was a lot, very hard work passing the Series 7 and 63 license tests. Well, the 7 was tough. The 63 is a bit easier. You need the 7 to trade stocks and the 63 in order to trade mutual funds. At least that's what it was in California when I was in the business. I enjoyed the analysis aspect of the job, but I really did not care for the sales aspect. There was a lot of cold calling involved, which I despised. I worked for a very small firm. If you have ever seen the movie Boiler Room, that firm really hit home for me. There were many, many aspects of that crooked firm in that film that reminded me of what went on in the company where I worked. Ultimately, I wasn't good at the sales portion of the job and really couldn't make ends meet, so I left that world. The next question is, NC State, Carolina, Duke, or Wake Forest? That's an important question around these parts. Wake Forest is about an hour and a half away, so they aren't as big in the Raleigh-Durham area where I live. It's basically Duke, UNC, or NC State. Even though I lived in the area for about 15 years, I really haven't developed a loyalty to any of the schools or a hatred for any of them. I think that I kind of want them all to succeed, which I realize is rather blasphemous around these parts. I'm actually a San Diego State fan. This year is actually shaping up to be potentially a very nice year for Aztecs basketball. It was really disappointing in 2020 when the NCAA tournament was canceled. San Diego State had a legitimate shot at the championship. Chances like that don't come around often for mid-major teams, and so that was a bit painful to have happen. I didn't attend San Diego State, however. I went to Indiana State University, but I really don't follow Sycamore sports at all. Okay, next question is, what has been the most fulfilling event or point in your pen journey? I really consider making reviews and creating online content to be an extension of the hobby. I never plead for subscribers, but it is interesting that about 60% of the views I get are from people who are not subscribed. I am closing in on 40,000 subscribers, which would be a nice number to hit. So if you enjoy this content and feel free to subscribe and turn on notifications. I do find creating content to be fun. Don't get me wrong, it is a great deal of work, and believe me, no one is getting rich on YouTube making fountain pen reviews. It is essentially a less than minimum wage part-time job, but it is given back in other ways. I've developed great relationships with tons of manufacturers and distributors and artisans. And it's really great to, it's been a really good way to expand my social circle as well. I can honestly say that I have friends literally around the world that I wouldn't have known if it wasn't for this hobby. When going to a pen show, I enjoy hanging out with folks and meeting new people. It's really fun when people come up and say hi. A lot of times people will let me know some of their favorite videos that I've made. They'll mention the interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson, or several times they've said they were attending a show for the first time and my Pen Show 101 video was helpful. But the one video I keep hearing folks really enjoyed was the one I did with Jonathan Brooks, where I visited his studio and we created some custom resins. At that point in time, Jonathan really hadn't shown a lot of what he did. So it was one of the first times people got to get a bit of a peek behind the scenes at someone who is one of the best in the world at what they do. Jonathan and I joke about this because both of us have had multiple people come up to us at every show we attend and let us know that that video inspired them to begin either creating resins or turning pens themselves. When you create some content, you have the goal of it being helpful and useful and entertaining. You want viewers to get something out of it. And it's nice to hear that Jonathan and I were able to create something that inspired others. So I would say that every time someone lets me know that I created something that inspired them is the most fulfilling point in my pen journey. Okay, next question. Favorite LCD sound system song? During my recent trip to San Francisco, I was able to see LCD Sound System in concert. It was a lot of fun. I had not been to a concert in what feels like forever. I had never seen them live before, so I was glad to be able to have gone. There was one thing that happened during the show which was a bit odd. The band had played a series of shows in the same venue, and this was the final night. As the show progressed, if there was a particular instrument that was no longer being used for the rest of the night, the roadies would come out and take it away, and then from where I was sitting, you could see them packing up each piece. It was just odd to begin the night with a large number of instruments on the stage, and over the night, the number of instruments progressively was reduced. In regard to my favorite songs, I love All My Friends. Daft Punk is playing at my house as a song that will always put me in a good mood. I think that Losing My Edge is great. I can really relate to the lyrics and find them funny. And finally, there is a live version of 4533 featuring Reggie Watts from their final Madison Square Garden show that is amazing as well. Okay, next question. According to your EDC log, what have been your top 3 most used pens over the past year? If you're not aware, I have made available an everyday carry log, which I use to track my daily fountain pen use. If you search YouTube for everyday carry fountain pen log, you will find the video where I demonstrate how to use the Excel tool as well as where it can be downloaded. It's a tool that I use to make sure that I'm rotating through my collection, and I took a look at the data over the past year, and I've been doing a good job of rotating through things. There were 9 pens tied for the top spot. There was the Sailor Canrecchi, the Rockster Daydreamer, a Montblanc Hitchcock, a couple of Leonardos, a Momento Zero Grande in primary manipulation, as well as my Figboot model in Carolina Midnight. There was the Lamy Dialogue CC, Kilk Celestial, and finally the Kasama Una. I was pleased with that list. There was no embarrassing pens on there. All 9 are solid pens that you should check out. I have reviews of all of them except for the Sailor Canrecchi, which is this pen right here. This was a limited edition Pro Gear that Sailor put out to commemorate the 60th birthday of their nib designer, Kawaguchi Akihiro. It might be tough to see here, but there are 3 different colors of red resin used in this pen. This is one of my favorite Pro gears. I haven't reviewed it because it was a limited edition pen that essentially has been sold out for many years. Who knows? You might be able to find a random retailer who has one available, but they are rather scarce. I tend not to review things that are essentially unobtainable unless there is a specific reason to do so. Okay, next up. Do you think the Padres will get past the Mets? Yes, I do. Because the series has already happened, and my Padres won. And then they defeated the Dodgers, which was very satisfying. I actually traveled up to Philadelphia for Game 4 of the National League Championship Series. I was a very lonely Padres fan. After a run-scoring double, the TV broadcast showed the crowd, and you could see here in a sea of red, there is me with my brown and gold. Also, whenever they were shooting the pitcher from the third base side, apparently you could see me in the stands as well. While I was not pleased with the overall outcome of the game, it was a fun experience. The Phillies ballpark is nice, but there's nothing else around it, just parking lots. It's not like Petco Park in downtown San Diego and other stadiums where before and after games, people really congregate in the multitude of bars and restaurants in the area and the surrounding area, kind of bringing the area to life. In Philly, they have their baseball and football and basketball stadiums all right next to one another in a bit of a complex, but that's it. The area is kind of lacking a bit of soul, if that makes sense. I will say, though, that when I arrived in town, I wanted to try the best cheesesteak in town, which, upon several recommendations, was D'Alessandro's, which is a bit north of downtown. I drove all the way up there only to find a huge line of people outside of the place. I'm not sure how long it was going to take to get through that line, and I had to, I had to immediately turn around because I needed to make sure I wasn't late to the game. So I visited the place that had the best cheesesteak in town, but unfortunately I didn't get to sample one. Maybe on my next trip to the area. Okay, a couple of questions left. The next one is, apart from a pen, what other items do you carry every day? You know what? I carry 3 items with me every day. I carry this Hobonichi Techo, and I have a pop-off leather case that I have with it that's really nice. And I've really grown fond of these Hobonichi Techos. And then this is a case from Wancher, and this is called the Wancher Penfolium. And this is what I carry my pens in for the week. And usually I'll fill this up at the beginning of the week with the pens that I'm going to use for the week. And this is what I will carry them in inside my bag. And then finally, something that I really enjoy, I've done a review on this item as well. This is the Allegory Padfolio. I don't know if I open this up, how messy this is going to look. But basically, it has a pad in here. And, this is basically what I carry around with me every day and make my to-do lists on of what I need to accomplish each day. So those are the main items that I carry around with me every single day. Okay, final question. Is someone asked how to tell the difference between a plastic and Ebonite feed. When I first started with this hobby, that was a question I had myself. You hear people talk about plastic and Ebonite feeds, but I was never really sure when I was really looking at an Ebonite feed. But once you know what to look for, it's very simple to tell the difference. Here is a typical plastic feed. You can see the deep fins. Plastic feeds can come in all shapes and sizes. Here's a different looking one on the Mont Blanc Starwalker. That one almost looks like a high heel wedge sandal. Here's a red plastic feed. Often you will see them with numbers on the bottom to indicate the type of nib that they go with. And then here is an Ebonite feed. They come in a wide variety as well. You'll notice that there aren't any fins. The slits on the side don't really go all the way down to the bottom. That's typical on most of them. And you can really notice the grain of the Ebonite. Ebonite is essentially a very hard rubber, so it'll have those grains as opposed to the slick look of plastic. Here's another Ebonite feed, and you can see the cross-cut grain. And here's one more example where the slits go across the entire length of the feed. Ebonite feeds have a tendency to have a bit of a lower profile as well. There is a feeling that a lot of people have that Ebonite feeds are superior and encourage superior ink flow. I don't necessarily agree with that. There are so many factors that go into ink flow that it's really tough to compare nibs and make that assessment. In my opinion, Ebonite feeds look cooler, so they have that going for them. But I can't say for certain whether or not they perform better than their plastic counterparts. Okay, I think that's enough Q&A. I'll say this, I say this every time I do one of these, but I should get around to doing these more often. You just might see a couple of videos along these same veins in the fairly near future. We'll see. I need to do a pen pet peeves video, and I have one more that I've been thinking about for a while. So possibly be on the lookout for those soon. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Jenny!